Hey guys, so welcome back to Ayana's DIY Corner, and to my subscribers, I know it has been a hot minute since I have posted anything, but I really needed to take a full step back and kind of just relax, unwind. I have been going, and being a mom, being a employee, being all sorts of roles, it kind of started to take a toll on me. So I needed to take a little me time. Currently, I am visiting my parents in Atlanta, and I wanted to do a review on the handheld sewing machine. Now, I know there are a few reviews on this, a lot of unboxing and stuff like that, but I'm not gonna do an unboxing. I'm just gonna talk about the product. My dad actually purchased this machine, hem his pants and mend any of his clothing, right? He thought this would have made it so much easier to hem and mend his clothing. And after his first use, he literally just dumped it in a corner and left it right there. So when we came to visit, he quickly handed it over to me. He thought it would have been useful with a lot of the things that I do, especially with the whole refashioning and recycling of a lot of the clothing that I do on my channel. And he also thought it would have been an assistance in fixing a jacket that he refuses to throw away. But for this video, I'll just be talking about the handheld sewing machine. So let's get into it. Now, in the package, they do give you a good bit of tools and cool stuff that I will definitely take from the package to use with my normal sewing stuff, my whole kits, my toolkits. But I'm just gonna run through it for you guys. So in the package, you get obviously the handheld sewing machine. You get a nice snipper, a thread snipper. You get a really cool thread snipper. You get a lot of the bobbins with different color threads. They actually give you a variety of colors other than whites. I am not certain because I never really asked my dad, so I'm not certain if he probably got himself some additional bobbins. I'm not certain, right? But they do come with bobbins and different colors in the package itself. They also give you this little tool here, which I have established is used to help you thread the machine. And trust me, you are going to need it to help you thread the machine. They give you a measuring tape, a little measuring tape came in the package. I believe my dad would have probably gotten these snaps and the little buttons in this package. I think my dad kind of purchased that himself and just placed it in the little bag package that came in the box. So he just added that himself. I don't think that came with it. You get an additional stool. This is used on the machine to help you place the bobbins onto them. All right. And you also get another little sort of hook. Here again, this is to assist you in threading of some sort. So they give you a lot of little tools to assist you in prepping the machine for sewing. So let's get into my little pros and cons of this machine. And I'm going to admit, one time I have more cons than pros. So to kick off, I'm gonna give the only pro for this machine. And the only pro, and this is my take, the only pro for this machine is, I would say it is great for when you have to sew around edges of any of your garments, be it pants, a shirt, a jacket, a dress, a t-shirt, whatever. This machine is great for working along the edges of your garments. So let's just say you want to hem your jeans. This is a great machine to use if you want to hem your denim, if you want to hem any pants, or you need to hem your skirt line. This is good for that. All right, this is your edge, you need to hem it. You just fold your hem and you place it into the machine and it's able to hem for you. So this machine is just great for dealing with the edges of garments, and if you need to mend the seams of any of your garments. Let's get into the cons. Con number 1. Threading this machine is extremely tedious. It doesn't matter if you are a beginner, if you are an expert at it. Threading this machine is very tedious. Okay? Alright, so let me show you why I say this is extremely tedious, because you have a lot to do when it comes to threading the machine. So the first thing you need to do is remove this piece here. So you're just removing that. Now be careful, because once you remove that piece, the spring can just, come out of place, and you need the spring to remain right there. Then you need to just take, I'm going to use this white one. So you're just going to take one of the bobbins. I'm just going to use the white, and you're going to place the bobbin onto this tool piece here. And then you're going to place that right there. Okay. Now, the instructions said it doesn't matter what direction the thread is in or it's coming onto the machine, it doesn't matter. So this is what you should have so far. After getting the thread there, you then have to hook it. Okay, now you see this little piece right here. You have to get the thread through this hole. Okay, so this is one of the parts the thread has to pass through before it even goes on to the little dial right here. And I believe this is the tension dial of the handheld sewing machine. So I'm gonna go ahead and pass the thread through this little hole. All right, it's like threading a normal needle. Okay, handheld needle. It's basically like threading one of these needles right here. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and pass it through this hole, and once I get it through that hole, I then have to just pass it around, just place it over the tension dial. And then once I get it into the tension dial, I then have to hook it and pass it through this little hook piece you're seeing at the bottom of the machine here, this nice little silver hook. Once I pass it around the tension dial, I then have to take the thread, pass it through that hook. Once I get it through that hook, I then have to pass the thread through the sewing machine needle eye. I'm trying to get that zoomed proper there for you. All right, so then I have to pass it through the needle eye on the sewing machine, and once it passes through that, that's the last part. All right, and to get it through the needle eye, because it's very difficult to operate with this small spacing here the needle is at, that is where the tool comes in. So first you can either push this. Once you push this part, this little silver hook comes out, and you can probably try to use that to get the thread through there, or you can pull this piece out. Okay, so once you pull that piece out, you get this little needle piece here again. And what I did was, it's so weird, I had to make sure now, because this little tool is shaped this way, I am able to kind of get the hook there and the hole of the needle there, and then I have to, it's a lot of drama to thread this machine. And this is where my first con comes in. The time it takes you to thread this machine, you would have already threaded one of these needles, right? And you would have probably either finished one pant leg already by the time this machine has been threaded, or you would have been halfway through with one of the pant legs already, or probably even finished mending whatever you needed to mend in the time it takes to thread this machine. This machine is tedious and frustrating, and this was one of the reasons why my dad never picked this machine up again. It was because the threading was a lot of work, and the needle eye is super small in the machine, so it's like a lot of work to thread it. Okay, so the machine is threaded. As you can see, I placed the bobbin there, passed it through the little hole, placed it onto the, okay, I think I need to fix the threading, because the thread needs to go through the silver plating of that. So let me kind of pull there we go. All right, so again, the bobbin is where it's supposed to be. I passed the thread through the little hole, I placed it onto the tension. It is hooked, as you can see, on that little silver hooking at the bottom there, and I passed it through the needle with the assistance of this piece here, with this little silver hook piece. So now that the needle and the machine is threaded, I'm going to use this little piece of material to test. So this is where the other con comes in. With the handheld machine, you can't do any type of back stitch to lock off your piece, so it requires you to leave a very long tail at the start of your project, and then you would also have to leave a very long tail at the end of the sewing project, so that you can knot it off at the ends to ensure that your stitch stays in place. So that is one of my cons. You cannot backstitch. The machine does not lock your stitch in place at the beginning and at the end of your stitch, and that's a no-no for me, because a machine's supposed to be able to do that for me. All right, so when it comes to placing the piece, be it fabric or the garment, you have to place it underneath the plate. So it means you have to lift the plate. All right, so you can lift the plate. So you have to lift the plate and place the fabric under the plate. Okay, so I have my fabric underneath the plate. So now it's just for me to start. And to start stitching, you have to make sure the safety is off and then just press. And it should just stitch. Now, because I am actually holding my camera with one hand and using my other to do everything else, my stitch is not coming out in a, straight, but you get the idea. So you just have to press for it to stitch. So I'm going to stop. All right, and we're just going to take a look. Now, the reason why it's like this piece here is that extra tail that I left. So I'm just going to pull that forward here. All right, so it doesn't confuse anyone. All right, so this is just the tail that I left, because as you can see, it's not sealed. The stitch at the start is not sealed. It's not locked in place. And there's also nothing done at the back of your stitch. All right, so this is my stitch here. There's nothing locking the stitch in place either. All right, at the back. So leaving that extra tail is necessary so that you can now knot this tail piece to keep your stitch in place. Now here's the other tedious. This is the other con right here. Now with a sewing machine, again, there are those you can just press and automatically it cuts away all the excess threading and it locks everything, the stitch in place. For this, we have to come to the winder here, and I have to, as you can see, the needle is raising, and that's the furthest it will go right there. So I'm gonna stop. Even though I can keep turning, it's not gonna raise the needle any higher, so the needle is at the point where it should be. And I have to now raise the metal plate, and I have to come now and I have to take my time and remove the fabric from under the plating. And while removing it, I have to pull it very gently as to not burst the threading, because if that threading bursts, I'm not gonna have enough tail to make a knot. All right, so that's the other. See, it burst, it snapped, and I don't have enough threading, as you can see, to knot. All right, so even though I raised the plate and moved the fabric, you have to take your time and be very careful when removing it, or else you're going to snap the thread and you're not going to have a tail at the end of your stitch to lock your stitch in place. And listen, that makes no sense. You're better off hemming or mending anything with hand needles, because at least with the hand needle, you are able, before you even start sewing, you place a knot at the end of the thread, and you know that locks your stitch at the start. And when you are finished with your stitch using your handheld needles, right, you can also place a knot at the end of your stitch. Easy peasy. And you take your little snipper or your scissors and you cut away the excess thread and the needle from your stitch, and you're good to go. With the handheld machine, you still have to, even though it ran the stitch, and I would admit the stitch is very nicely done, All right, as you can see, you have your overlaps at the back there, which shows that it is giving you a nice connect with every stitch, and you have a nice stitch line going with the handheld machine. So that, I'll give it an X Pro in the fact that it does give you some very nice, neat stitch lines, but the fact that you have to leave all this tail at the end, at the beginning, and also ensure you have a good length of thread tail at the end to have to knot your stitch in place, it defeats the whole purpose of having this handheld machine, which is supposed to make it so much easier to hem and mend your clothing, all right, without having to use the handheld needles. So it's a really good idea. The handheld machine, I would say it's a good idea, but I think they need to make threading a little more easier. First, if they have to redesign this, I would recommend that they make it a little easier to thread the machine, and also find a way for it to knot, especially if not at the beginning, at least at the end of the stitch, so that the user doesn't have to go back and do a lot of work when they're finished using the machine. That's one. And two, oh God, for goodness sake, you know what? That's my only thing. Make it a little easier to thread and make it in a way that it is able to lock the stitch in place at the end of the stitch. We could always put the knot at the beginning. At least at the beginning, we are able to get an easy tail, but at the end, you can't. So I would recommend you make it in a way that it can lock the stitch in place at the end. So that's my whole review on this machine. Again, my recommendation will be not to get this machine, especially if you're a beginner and you're probably thinking, just like my dad, I'm gonna get it to hem stuff or mend stuff. I would recommend not to get it, especially if you don't have the patience to do this whole threading process. So guys, till next time, deuces.